When a band or an artist is known for a certain type of style or music, they sometimes write a song that seems so far beyond them, but it's so good. Metal became a part of my life back in the late 90s, though I'm sure I've heard of many bands prior to that can fit that bill, be it Judas Priest or Metallica. My first real introduction and acceptance to it came when I was introduced to the band Korn in the mid to late 90s. My sister was dating a guy at the time that got her into it, and as much of a pesky fly-on-the-wall little brother that I was, I got into it through that as well, and Korn was unlike anything I had experienced up to that point in my life. The aggressive and raw nature of the first two albums showed me there was something very alluring about the darker nature of heavy music. Toward the end of the new millennium, I had discovered who most considered to be the godfather of heavy metal, and that of course is Ozzy Osbourne. Obviously through Ozzy, I finally took notice of Black Sabbath as well, and because of that I still have fond memories of downloading Black Sabbath's Paranoid album from Kazaa back in the early 2000s. That is if you were lucky enough to not get a huge virus on your computer. Even this dad rock form of music really started to speak to me even at a young age. So hearing Ozzy solo stuff alongside that at the same time was a little jarring. Sabbath was more blues and groove oriented metal, gems were much more prominent and had a different but great feel overall. Ozzy's solo material was much more straightforward metal, not speaking ill of it, but it lacked the jam band improvised nature Sabbath had really gotten me into. I still liked a lot of Ozzy's solo music as well, and the first CD of his that I actually bought was Down to Earth, which was released in 2001. The song Gets Me Through was constantly being played through my speakers, and then even a single like Dreamer showed me the softer but still very important side of metal. From there I would discover more of Ozzy's solo hits such as Crazy Train, No More Tears, Mama I'm Coming Home, and more. It wasn't until I was closer to my 20s when I had finally heard what I would consider to be one of the most unique tracks he's ever done in his solo catalog, and that is the title track to his 1981 studio album. Diary of a Madman is the title track to his second studio album as a solo artist. It was released through Jet Records in October 1981. The album as a whole was produced by Max Norman, Ozzy Osbourne, and Randy Rhoads. The song itself was co-written by Osbourne, Rhoads, bassist Bob Daisley, and Lee Kerslake, who did drums and percussion. The string arrangements on the track were produced by Lewis Clark, who also did choir and string arrangements for Electric Light Orchestra. The song follows many time signatures as well, including the common 4/4, and then more unusual ones such as 9/8, 7/4, and 6/8. The lyrics of the song were written by bassist Bob Daisley, though it should be noted that Daisley was fired after the recording these tracks and I believe before the release of the album. It's said that he disagreed with management about wanting to replace drummer Lee Kerslake, and that would eventually lead to himself being fired. Though his name can still be seen on original pressings of the record, it's in very minimal form, and ultimately he was uncredited for his work on the album. Daisley has spoken at length about his time playing for Ozzy, and how it came to be that he and Kerslake were uncredited for their work. The lyrics are fairly straightforward in their meaning. It's a look at someone in a losing battle with their mental health. Now, I'm not able to find any direct article or interview to confirm this, but under the assumption that the lyrics were indeed written by Daisley, it said that he had written the song about himself. On various websites, I found interview texts that read, after suffering his first nervous breakdown at age 16, he quickly learned some of the biggest problems we deal with are in ourselves, which inspired lyrics like I am my own worst enemy. There's nothing too cryptic about the lyrics, so a simple read-through can actually give you a pretty good idea of what's happening. It's still dark subject matter considering this is based on someone's personal struggle with themselves, so I think it helps bring much more emotional depth to an already complex song. The song opens with a beautiful and haunting classical guitar piece being performed by Randy Rhoads. This composition came about when Rhoads was practicing the classical and was playing Leo Brouwer's Study No. 6. He would make minor variations to this piece so it would sit well on its own. Shortly after the intro is when the heavy and sharp electric guitar takes over and really gets the song going strong on the hammer-ons that really pick up life into this track. Time signatures fly all over the place at this point, and forgive me if I'm really bad for describing this kind of stuff because musical theory is not exactly my strong point, so I'm only going by what I read online, so if anything sounds wrong, you could blame them, not me. The opening is essentially in the common 4/4 time while dipping in and out of the 9/8 time signature and the 8/8 as well, so I guess 4/4 just done a little faster. Once the verse actually kicks in, the track switched over to a 7/4 signature, which is really felt when the verse dials back the intensity and we're handed this unusual but fun groove. And then finally the chorus switches up to a 6/8 signature, and it's much more digestible because it has an easier flow to it. There isn't much of a transition point between verses and choruses, but everything that happens feels fitting and seamless in its own way. The chorus brings these sudden small pickups to an otherwise quieter and more unsettling verse. Even with time signatures going all over the place, the vocals are actually really easy to catch onto. It's an easy melody that flows well with the rhythm, the lyrics are pretty easy to memorize, so it actually starts feeling catchy fairly quick. As I had mentioned previously, there's not much in the way of transitions throughout the track, but the bridge is treated quite differently. A quieter, far more somber portion of the track that is driven by acoustic guitars, a powerful choir, and a beautifully arranged string section does a great job of creating tension by building slowly into the guitar solo that tears its way through the song before giving way to the final verse. Keeping the strings in the final verse was actually a brilliant choice, as it keeps the atmosphere feeling whimsical, but yet you still feel like you're in the throes of emotion that we've been getting up to this point. The ending is just a much more grand version of the electric motif that started the song originally. Strings and choir are layered behind the riffs to truly fill out the soundscape. In a way, it feels a little overwhelming, but given the nature of the song, it works perfectly to put you right in the seat of the protagonist. The intensity and anxiety feel high with all the different layers starting to swarm you until it all comes to an abrupt stop, as if you're finally waking up from a nightmare. It's super effective, it's very epic, and just generally well thought out. Ozzy is beloved in the world of metal and music in general. For better or for worse, he's made many crossovers across the entire industry, and he continues to push on to this day, and at the point of penning the script for this particular video, he's 74 years old, so take that as you will, especially in the condition that he's in. That is impressive to say the least though. Compositionally, the music is pretty straightforward, and by that I mean just, the verse, chorus, bridge, verse, chorus type of setup, but it still packs a powerful and meaningful punch. Overall though, Diary of a Madman is different. With its complex blend of flow and composition, odd time signatures, dreary atmosphere, it managed to be one of the more unique songs in his entire 43-year solo career. From the beautiful and hypnotizing acoustics to the powerful electric motifs that hammer themselves into your head, Diary of a Madman has stood the test of time and holds up so well to this day, and likely even beyond that. And that's why I love this song.